Welcome to Crime Beat. I'm Anthony Robart. Tonight, a 10-year-old girl in southwest Montreal heads to the corner store and then disappears without a trace. No witnesses, no clues.
Called 911, they came at the house, they checked everywhere.
After 2 sleepless nights wondering where her daughter is, Dolores Soucy fears the worst.
My heart is still bleeding and will continue to bleed until my daughter has been found.
We took thousands of tips in those first few months. Jolene's name became a household name.
We questioned so many people. Some cooperated, others did not.
They showed me pictures, I couldn't recollect him, I couldn't recognize him, I couldn't pinpoint him.
The police were really guarded about what they found. Very, very tight-lipped.
We gotta catch this guy.
Here now is Dan Spector with To Catch a Killer.
10-year-old Jolene Riendeau lived in Montreal's Pointe St. Charles neighborhood, a working-class area in the southwest of the city. It was a spring afternoon, and she strapped on some rollerblades and glided down the street toward a local corner store. She was seen eating a bag of chips there.
Around 9 o'clock, when I noticed that she wasn't around, I started looking for her, and because Jolene used to call me about 25 times a day since we had a phone.
With night setting in, her parents started to get worried.
I didn't really know where she could have been. She couldn't have been at the Boys and Girls Club. It was closed. At the YMCA pool, I don't think so. She didn't have her bathing suit. I waited and waited to call the police, and knowing that the metro was closed and it was the last bus drive and she wasn't there.
It was an area that was always of interest to me because I'm of Irish descent. A lot of Irish came out of that place, out of the point, as they called it. But it was known as a rough area.
So when did you start getting really concerned?
Midnight.
And what did you do then?
Called 911, they came at the house, they checked everywhere. And I told them, I said, if she would have been here, she wouldn't have stayed all day there underneath her bed or in the closet. So they said, we have to check. It went so fast that at 3 o'clock in the morning, there was a search around. Policemen were searching for her and everything. So they parked in front of the house and they stayed there.
What do you remember of that time?
Crazy house. In and out from policemen, nighttime, morning time.
After 2 sleepless nights wondering where her daughter is, Dolores Soucy fears the worst.
Breaks a mother's heart. Not having your child in her bed at nighttime, not knowing if she's cold, not knowing if she's in a ditch, dead lying somewhere at 10 years old.
10-year-old Jolene Riendeau went out to play before dinner on Monday. She stopped at this dépanneur where she was last seen. Jolene is about 5 feet tall and weighs 80 pounds. She was wearing a blue fleece jacket, dark jeans, and gray shoes.
Jolene went missing in April of 1999. I had been at the network for about 5 years.
20,000 more.
The police asked the Missing Children's Network to get involved. They say time is crucial.
Back then, our executive director was the late Susan Armstrong. I remember, when Jolene went missing, I had a 9-year-old nephew. So my first thought was like, oh my God. And then right away, I had to tell myself, no, don't personalize it because you will not get through this day.
When Jolene went missing, Kevin was going on 13 and Adrienne was about 8.
Just grabbing at straws, trying to keep also their family together because they had 2 other children. But just like, so desolate with this emptiness in their eyes, like, why is this happening to us? Child abduction is a very rare thing.
A handful of volunteers gathered at the Pointe St. Charles police station. They wanted to do what they could to help in the search of 10-year-old Jolene Riendeau, who's been missing since Monday. Those who were most moved to action, parents.
I have a girl, 16 years old, something happening to her. I wish probably the same people could do the same for me.
I remember seeing the headlines in the media, and the coverage was growing. I believe it was because Dolores Soucy was so open.
My heart is still bleeding and will continue to bleed until my daughter has been found.
Soucy says her daughter had behavior problems. She had run away 3 times before, but only for a few hours each time.
Young Jolene hadn't always seen eye to eye with her parents. Some wondered if she could have run away.
She was a little rebel. She used to hang around, not come in the house at the hour time. But she was my daughter, she was my child. She was street smart. She used to take the bus, the metro. She was out of control, and she thought she can defy us as parents, but I didn't accept it. So before something happened to her, I gave her up for 6 months.
Always impressed by how honest and frank for a parent in that situation to be saying, oh yeah, well, I once put her in a group home for a few months because of her behavior. To say she ran away from home 3 times previously, to me that's very rare.
When she came back in March of '98, everything was going great, you know. She was respecting the rules. She was at school, she was good.
Dolores Soucy says her daughter had been on good behavior for the past year. Given they lived in such a rough area, Soucy was becoming more and more certain her daughter was taken against her will.
There were several people who we met with in that neighborhood. Lots of perverts? There were for sure. We did the rounds.
They had searched for how many pedophiles, for how many streets in the Point, and there was about 100 to 150 pedophiles in the 10 streets in those days.
She even wondered if a neighbor could have been involved.
Welcome back to Crime Beat. It was April 1999, and a frantic search was on for 10-year-old Jolene Riendeau, last seen at a local corner store eating a bag of chips. With the police admitting there were known pedophiles living in her Montreal neighborhood, Jolene's family was growing desperate for her safe return. We now return to Dan Spector with To Catch a Killer.
I still keep in touch with them.
Jolene's disappearance was becoming a big story, capturing a lot of attention in Montreal and the entire province of Quebec.
If it were my child, I hope people would help look, she says. They were assigned to search the area under the Ville Marie, just east of Atwater, and this nearby resident says it's a good place to look.
Oh yeah, even younger kids play here. Even like from 8 to 10, they come here, 6. They play around here every day.
Police will take all the help they can get. They've expanded their search to include downtown and Montreal North, where Jolene goes to school.
It's a very large search that we made because 3 days now, it's long for a missing person, especially for a young kid.
There was an outpouring of love and affection for this young girl.
Through the media, the Missing Children's Network tried to appeal directly to Jolene.
Please, if you can, call home, call a friend, call 911, or call me anytime.
We worked literally night and day. I remember being at the office like 6:30. Often I was the first one. Just remember, back in 1999, we did not have social media. The 24-hour feed TV stations did not exist. Digital photographs did not exist. Imagine all the time that we're wasting. courier over to the printers, setting up the poster, printing copies, getting them back into our office, distributing them to the different police stations.
There were millions that were printed.
You know, we continue to search. That means there's still that glimmer of hope that this young girl is still alive. We took thousands of tips in those first few months. We worked closely with the producers of America's Most Wanted. Jolene's name became a household name.
35 officers are assigned to the case, as well as 12 investigators from the Major Crimes Unit. They moved a mobile command post to the girl's home to help gather information.
We check every tips that we receive, but we doesn't have good leads that can leads us to Jolene.
One thing that touched me enormously was going to Jolene's school. No one is prepared to have to explain to a group of 9-year-olds and to explain to an entire school why a classmate is missing, why someone was kidnapped. The parents are not certainly prepared to live through this experience, right? And a school is not ready.
Jolene was a beautiful little girl. As a baby, she was an angel. She hardly cried. She'd like to have fun in the park. She'd have to, her bike, you know, she'd like to go to the Boys and Girls Center at l'Arena Saint-Charles. She was a child. The day before she went missing, I had to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to go to work. She had asked me to wake her up at 4 o'clock in the morning for me to fix her hair, like on the picture. So when I got up, I looked at her sleeping, and I didn't wake her up. I let her sleep, and I left for work. If I would have known, I would have woken her up and said, I love you, and hug you, cherish you, but you can go back to sleep now.
As days went by and there was still no trace of Jolene, some in the neighborhood questioned if the family themselves could have been involved in her disappearance.
We got people having, the public having discussions, saying that whatever we, like how we were as parents, as a family, it's the way we were living our lives that they didn't appreciate.
What does that mean?
Well, neglecting, first of all, due to drugs. As a parent, I was there, but I was not mentally there. Physically I was, but mentally I wasn't. Fortunately, I was in drugs. And that's why I think I was punished for not being there for her at the moment. Some investigators thought that I had sold Jolene for $25,000 of coke. Some of them thought that I had the bills to the drug dealers. It wasn't true. It's weird how people can think.
We judge, you know. Why do you let a 10-year-old out on her own? Why do you let them bike on their own? If they hadn't done this, this wouldn't have happened. And so on and so forth. First of all, this judgment doesn't help because the child has not asked for any of this to happen. And no family deserves to live through these type of situations as well.
In the days after she vanished, police divers began to search the murky waters of the Lachine Canal. Could there be clues that could lead to her being found? Or could she be down there in the dark?
Dog handlers, divers, the helicopter, these are some of the resources that were used in this investigation. We even went to Florida at one point to verify a tip from a snowbird who told us Jolene was there. We used Interpol. We did so much in this file because we believed in it, and it was important to the population. We questioned so many people. Some cooperated, others did not.
How do you describe the work that the police did back then?
I had no problem with the policemen in those days. The investigators were A1. Even though sometimes at nighttime they come and they question us, or I hadn't slept for a whole month. So they were okay. They were good.
For years, it went quiet. You know, after like some intense coverage, there's no news, there's no developments, so there's nothing new to report on. The investigators had nothing. And then a jailhouse confession. Two guys are locked up in a cell, and one of the guys says to another, "Yeah, I killed her and I dumped her in the Lachine Canal."
For years, there had been no new developments in the disappearance of 10-year-old Jolene Riendeau until police received a tip from an inmate, a man claiming that he killed her and dumped her body in a location close to where she was last seen.
Since Jolene Riendeau disappeared in 1999, police got close to 1,400 tips about her whereabouts. After 6 years of false alarms, police think this latest tip could be the one that leads to her discovery.
Until we find her, I can't say she's deceased.
Police have been searching the waters near the Charlevoix Bridge because of a tip. A sexual predator in prison allegedly bragged about killing Riendeau and then dumping her in the canal. Another prisoner passed on the information to police. Many residents of Pointe St. Charles hope the Riendeau mystery will finally be solved, one way or another.
I got a pain about this young girl, you know. I just figure you got too much thing like this, you know, about the pedophile. And this one is a big sample, you know, a big example. And we're going to be happy if we find her.
But Jolene's family hopes police don't find her. They still believe she's alive somewhere.
I just can't figure myself to wish that we find something out of that. I'm just, it's a normal human reaction to hope to find nothing.
A boat owner offered to lend Montreal police his sonar-equipped vessel, and using the technology, they found something.
I'm sitting there, and you're just sitting there for hours watching this little canoe going around, a little motorboat going around. This poor guy who has to dive in the Lachine Canal, which was horribly murky, very murky, and you wonder what's in there.
We had the Lachine Canal emptied to possibly find the body because we had received a tip to that effect.
Thanks to their efforts, 3 masses were located. One of them could be the remains of Jolene Riendeau.
One of the homicide investigators, who I knew really well, he just didn't seem to care. Everything about his body language was wrong. You think he's, you know, they're all in anticipation. Is the body going to be here? Is the body going to be there? And I said, I really get the impression you don't think she's in the canal. You don't think she's there. He goes, yeah, you're absolutely right. He goes, I don't think she's there. He goes, we have to do this. We have to check it out. It was a jailhouse confession.
After scouring 3 suspicious areas with sonar technology, police announced Jolene's remains were not in the canal.
Yes, there's frustration for investigators. Obviously, no investigator likes to have a case left open. They want to close the case.
Police on the ground were even hampered. They had to deal with vicious prank phone calls.
We received one in particular was particularly strange, saying that she was seen in the area, but she was in disguise.
They felt we have to do it. We got to do it. It's a tip, and we got to look. So they found nothing.
Police called off the search for Jolene Riendeau late this morning, and when it was confirmed that nothing was found in the Lachine Canal, Riendeau's family celebrated.
I'm glad that they found nothing, and that everything that I was dreaming of came true.
For Kevin Riendeau, it was further proof that his sister Jolene is still alive.
There were false confessions in this file, several. On several high-profile cases, it becomes difficult afterwards. There were some with mental health issues. Others wanted the credit because they are in a criminal environment.
She wasn't in there. I didn't feel her there.
But the investigator told me, he seemed kind of frustrated, and he just said, "Look, I know who did it." He goes, "Take out your pad and pen." He gave me the name, gave me the date of birth. He remembered the date of birth. He wasn't referring to a piece of paper. Here's his date of birth. He said, "Paul, do your research on that guy. Be ready for the day when we arrest this guy. Just be ready." He's saying, don't write anything now, but be ready if we ever charge him, if we're ever able to charge him. So,
The years passed. Instead of celebrating Jolene's birthdays, the family marked the passing anniversaries of the day she went missing.
Kevin Riendeau hopes one day he gets a phone call from his sister.
We miss her.
And still no answers. The family remained in limbo.
For 11 years, she's been holding out hope of finding her daughter, but it hasn't been easy.
I'm a very angry woman.
This week, for the first time in a while, she has a good feeling, a sense that she may soon get some answers. A new photo of the missing girl has been made public, an age-enhanced image which shows what Jolene might look like today if she's alive. This Sunday is Jolene's 22nd birthday. Dolores Soucy no longer lives in Pointe St. Charles. She says she had to move for her sanity. But the 44-year-old mother carried over one tradition to her new home. She leaves her front light on every night for Jolene.
I remember the contractions. I remember raising her for 10.5 years, and she was taken away from me, and now I'm just supposed to forget her? Not happening. Ain't gonna happen.
The police had narrowed their investigation to 4 possible suspects, and they explained to the family why this person was being investigated and why this person might have been ruled out.
They showed me pictures. I couldn't recollect him. I couldn't recognize him. I couldn't pinpoint him.
The case was not a cold case for them, and they would continue, to keep active tabs on the suspects, again, in the hopes. And of course, as the police is explaining this to the family becomes very emotional because you want the answer right away.
I'll never give up on hope of searching my daughter and seeing her alive again.
It's hard to ask a family to be patient when they just want to know where is their daughter.
Little did Dolores Soucy know she was about to find that out.
Received a phone call from enquêteur Bonneau saying to the fact that we have to go to the major crimes office early in the morning. That moment, that moment.
It's a morning that I will never ever forget. And of course, I'm like anxious, my heart is beating. I get upstairs and 5 minutes to 6, Monsieur Bonneau, who was the lead investigator, says to me, "We're meeting with Jolene Riendeau and Dolores Soucy." I remember also we had paramedics in the room because René has a bad heart. And he says, "We are going to announce to them that we found the remains of Jolene." I just said, "Oh my God."
When I seen Pina, I said, "What are you doing here?" I had no mind in my idea that they were going to announce what they announced. He says, "We found Jolene." I said, "You found Jolene? Where is she? Go get me Jolene. I want to talk to Jolene."
All I remember is the mom just becoming hysterical, screaming, "I want to see my daughter. I need to see my daughter. Bring me to Jolene," like really emotional. "Bring me, I want to hold my daughter."
So he sat in front of my face. He says, "Dolores," I said, "Go get me Jolene. I want to talk to Jolene. Go get my daughter." He says, Jolene's dead. And he said, I said, well, where's the body? He says, after all this time, he says, there was only bones.
Jolene Riendeau was too heartbroken to speak today, too emotional to put his feelings into words. He and his wife just found out their little girl is truly gone.
We sat down and the investigator explains that construction workers, working on the side of the Champlain Bridge uncovered some remains and DNA revealed that it was Jolene.
He said she came out at 99.9%. I yelled.
Yes, it is confirmed. We did find the body of Jolene Riendeau this morning. It was confirmed. It is also confirmed as a homicide. So, two horrible news for the family. They were met by investigators this morning.
She collapsed to the floor at one point. So the both of us, I'm kneeling next to her. I'm just holding her, cradling her like a baby, holding her head. Just at one point, just saying, "It's okay, Dolores. It's okay. It's okay. We're here. You're not alone."
Well, like my dad told me, he says, Madame Riendeau, me St. Betsy, and I just pushed them. I took Bono. I remember taking the investigator by la cravate. And I said, now you're going to talk to me. You're going to listen to me. You're going to talk to me.
It was the worst possible outcome. 12 years after Jolene had gone missing, there was no more sliver of hope to hang on to. Not only was Jolene dead, she had been murdered.
Police provided few details regarding where or when the remains were found.
The police were really, really guarded about what they found. Very, very guarded. Very, very tight-lipped.
Police brought Jolene's parents on a grim journey to where their daughter was found. Marcamone joined them.
In the van on our way there, no one was talking. You could hear a pin dropping. I think everyone, we were all trying to just psych ourselves up. What would we see? How would it feel?
She wasn't that far from home. She was lured into that place. That I'm positive.
Today, we found out the missing girl's body was dumped a few kilometers from her home in nearby Verdun. The remains were discovered under a bridge on Highway 15 on the approach to the Champlain Bridge.
I had trouble figuring out why would he bring a body here to bury it.
She was taken somewhere where nobody can hear her yell. She was underneath the bridge. They'll check on the streets, they'll check in the old companies, they'll check in the garage. Why don't they go check underneath the bridges?
I remember again, just almost feeling sick to the pit of my stomach, thinking, who would leave a child there? Why would you bury a child there? Why would you want to harm a child? It was René, just sitting on the bench, tears streaming down, and he's just saying, how could I not know? She was a couple of kilometers away from my home.
Now that we revealed the location, we hope that some witnesses could come forward.
The information was made public, but the body was actually discovered last September. Jolene's mother, father, and brother Kevin laid flowers at the scene.
The family also learned that they had collected the DNA almost 9 months prior, but there was so very little of it that it took longer to have to really identify, and I guess they were also building their strategy around that.
In her old Point St. Charles neighborhood, there was sadness.
I don't know what to say about that. It's too bad.
There's a big, wave of sympathy. This is a missing children's case that generates so much media attention. When Jolene first went missing back in 1999.
It's one of the most unimaginable crimes that can be committed, to take someone innocent like that, vulnerable, and take her away and do God knows what, and then later kill her. I think it was that same day it started to leak out that they had arrested a suspect.
A 47-year-old suspect is a man previously charged
I can't tell you the background exactly why that is, because it is illegal to reveal that, but I can assure you, yes, he's well known by police services.
A man was questioned by police, interrogated for 12 hours by detectives in the city's East End.
I started to make a series of calls, and a couple of sources said, yeah, that's the guy. That's the guy we've arrested.
Paul Cherry says he found out from a police source that the person arrested and questioned was the same man whose name was given to him by an investigator on the Lachine Canal half a decade prior.
My sources who confirmed that they had arrested Robert Laramie, they're saying, we're not going to tell you anything about what we found. Sorry, we're not going to tell you. Because they want to get the suspect in during an interrogation.
The man in his 40s, named Robert Laramie, lived in the same neighborhood as Jolene when she disappeared.
You see it in TV, you see it in movies, you grill, and then there's this moment, wait a minute, we never said the little detail that only the killer knows. They want to keep that away from getting out.
In 1987, Laramie had been convicted on charges he faced after breaking into a woman's house north of Montreal and assaulting her. That was only the beginning of his disturbing criminal record.
Just after Jolene had disappeared, he had abused three young girls and a woman.
In 2002, Laramie pleaded guilty to assault and sexual assault on the woman and to assaulting 3 girls, sexually assaulting one of them. Laramie would later be found guilty of assaulting women in both 2007 and 2009.
Both of them had said, and these are women who did not know each other, they said it was really strange. He liked to suffocate me or pretend to suffocate me while they were having sex. And she said, one of them said, what on earth are you doing? And he said, this turns me on. I'll just say it was disturbing, very disturbing.
Those cases were still pending when he was detained in relation with Jolene's murder in 2011.
This mother of 4 in Point St. Charles woke up with a lot of questions on her mind.
Was it somebody in our neighborhood that you questioned? Is it, do we suspect that one of, some guy living over there took her,
My children, my other people's children, I'm concerned.
After a 12-hour interrogation, Robert Laramie was released without being charged.
More than a decade after 10-year-old Jolene Riendeau went missing, her body was finally found. And police made an arrest, a convicted sexual predator named Robert Laramie. However, no charges were laid, and he was later released. But Jolene's mother is about to make a bombshell revelation. We now return to Dan Spector with To Catch a Killer.
Amidst a flurry of police activity on the case, the family was finally able to lay Jolene to rest.
This may have been a day they didn't want, but a day they needed. Jolene Riendeau's family held out hope for years, but today, at least they know what happened. We found her at last, says this cousin of Jolene. We're happy for that.
Jolene came into this life on the 8th of August, 1988. And I had to give her back on the 8th of August, 2011. To make sure that I never forget that date. Felt good to have her back. Still sad because she wasn't alive. Felt good to have her back where she belonged.
Underneath the tears, there was also a growing rage. They wanted someone to pay for what happened to Jolene.
Everything depends on the willingness of people to collaborate, or not, with investigators.
At a packed news conference, she again made a plea to the public to help police find the killer.
He ran for 12 long years. He ain't gonna run no more.
Thanks to anonymous donors, police publicized a $30,000 reward for information leading to the arrest and conviction of Jolene's killer.
I know it was Laramie, I'm sure. This gutsy feeling that doesn't leave you. It haunts you.
Why are you so sure? How could you be so sure that it was him?
Because he won't take the polygraph test.
On June 5th, 2012, Laramie was at the Montreal courthouse. A judge was preparing to render a verdict in the case in which he was accused of assaulting and forcibly confining a woman he had been dating.
I wanted to see what the status of the case was. I walk up at the courthouse, and there's Dolores Soucy sitting right outside the courtroom. The judge, very critical of him, practically said, I don't believe a word of your testimony.
The judge found Laramie guilty of forcible confinement and assault.
And then there's this pause where they say, okay, so now we have to set a date for sentencing. And then I noticed that Dolores Soucy got out and followed him out of the courtroom. I'm like, ooh. While I'm sitting there in the courtroom, this is several meters away, you feel like, you hear this unmistakable sound. Ooh.
And I pushed my brother away, and I hit him.
So I got up, went outside, and then by then, there was this big crowd. She had clobbered him pretty good. He fell to the floor, and then she went onto him on the floor, tried to pummel him some more, I guess, and a special constable at the courthouse separated the two.
I wanted people to know who he was. For the sake of the children, for the sake of the women, you know.
Did you feel like you accomplished your mission of bringing attention to him?
Yes, I did. Proud of doing it too.
Soucy pleaded guilty to assaulting Laramie, but got an absolute discharge, leaving her with no criminal record.
What would you do if you saw him out today?
Beat him up again. I know that deep down in my gut he did do something to Jolene.
And Dolores Soucy had told me something else she remembered from around the time when Jolene went missing.
Afterwards, that's from the court that I knew it was him because I couldn't put a face on his name. I remember that I got into a scrap with Jolene on a Friday night. He wanted to bring his daughter and my daughter on the Canal Lachine on a Friday night in October.
The same year as that attack at the courthouse, Laramie denied he'd ever invited Jolene to go to the canal. But...
Mesdames, Messieurs, hier matin, je vous avais annoncé qu'on devait parler avec Monsieur Robert Laramie.
In an interview on French news channel LCN with veteran journalist Claude Poirier,
she came to my house a couple of times.
Laramie admitted Jolene had been to his house a few times, that their daughters were friends.
Claude did a great job. You know, like I said, I've heard you don't want to do a lie detector test. Why is that?
You don't want to do the lie detector with the police the way they suggest. Is that right? That's it? With the police? With the police? No, they're too harassing. It's too harassing.
Laramie said police had harassed him every year since Jolene disappeared, and that's why he refused their requests to take a lie detector test.
It's that sideways answer, you know. I'd rather have it be done by the private company than the Montreal police. Complete denial. I'm not the guy who killed Jolene Riendeau.
Est-ce que vous pouvez me jurer?
Can you swear to me that you had nothing to do with the murder and disappearance of Jolene?
Avec la disparition et le meurtre de Jolene Riendeau.
I swear to you I had nothing to do with the murder of Jolene Riendeau.
He's a sexual predator. That's been proven. It's in black and white in a lot of documents that have been presented in court against him and during his parole hearings. Just doesn't seem to care about anyone beyond himself.
There were people who were arrested, but there have never been any charges laid.
Quelques-uns.
A few or many?
Quelques-uns.
A few.
Police won't confirm or deny whether they consider Laramie a suspect or if they have any suspects at this time. No one has ever been charged in relation to Jolene's death.
I believe, I hope and I pray that it happens before I leave this planet Earth.
The problem with a case like this is there's this lingering thing of who did it. You know, even though I'm sure she believes that it was Robert Laramie who did it, but she still doesn't get that closure that comes with, you know, someone being charged.
I believe that Crimes against children should be punished and should receive the ultimate punishment. You don't touch children.
A colossal amount of work has been done. Nothing has been left to chance. Everything was done to find the person. But unfortunately, we're still missing a few little pieces.
The Amber Alert came to Quebec in 2003, 4 years after Jolene went missing. Pina Arcamone says her case was one of the reasons for that.
If we had it back then, I think it could have augmented our chances. Maybe we would have had news sooner than waiting 10 years.
It's difficult to look back 25 years and go back to all that we have, what we now know, what we didn't know then. At that point, surveillance cameras would have clearly helped us a lot.
Susie said for a long time she felt abandoned by police.
I closed in on myself a lot. I don't want to socialize no more. I don't drink. I don't party as much. I don't party at all. So I restrain myself to my own. I don't want to go out. Just in case somebody calls me and tells me we found him. Even if it's a 5-minute walk, I don't want to go out.
But after we spoke to her and to Commander Caron, she says the cold case squad reached out.
I would say that we are currently in contact with Mrs. Susie. It's been 25 years. There's been some information that we need to validate and verify.
Someone has reached out to her, saying he saw something that day in 1999.
This guy that's texting me, he's saying he was there.
So you think that guy is a credible account of what happened?
I got a gut feeling he's telling the truth.
At a gathering to mark the anniversary of Jolene's disappearance, she expressed optimism.
It gives me a big amount of hope, knowing that Jolene's file will be closed one day.
One hell of a lioness. Oh, that's all I can say is, and she lives her emotions. If she's happy, she's super happy. She's mad, she is enraged. And when she laughs, it's a hearty laughter, but very determined, resilient. You know, she never took no for an answer. Never took no for an answer.
Susie has marked every anniversary of Jolene's disappearance and did the same on the 25th anniversary. Along with family and friends, she released balloons near where her daughter's bones were found.
Bon ben, Jolene, attrape-les, qui brille de ton soleil. I dreamed about her. She came and told me, I'd like to come back home, Mom, but I can't. And I seen her go into this beautiful little chapel. The doors opened. She left. It still feels numb, weird. I miss her. We gotta catch this guy. He's gonna hurt somebody else.
We reached out to Robert Laramé through lawyers who had represented him. They did not respond to our request for comment. He has never been formally accused in Jolene's murder and has always denied any involvement. Now, since being released from a federal penitentiary in 2016, the parolee has alternated between freedom, a halfway house, and prison. He has breached conditions imposed on him a half a dozen times. The parole board has called him impulsive, irritable, and unpredictable. In 2023, Laramé was sent back to prison for 3 months after repeatedly harassing his parole officer. According to parole board documents, he also reached out to a sex worker, tried to access pornography, and made an account on TikTok, none of which are allowed under his parole conditions. Laramé is now back in a halfway house. Dolores Susie continues to hold out hope someone will one day pay for what happened to Jolene. I'm Anthony Robart. Thank you for joining us tonight on Crime Beat. Want more episodes of Crime Beat? Listen to the Crime Beat podcast, now for free on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you find your favorite podcast. And for past episodes of Crime Beat, go to the Global TV app, visit globaltv.com, or check out our Crime Beat YouTube page.